I now will yield to my colleague from Nevada, Congresswoman Dina Titus.
Well, I too would like to thank my friend from the Southwest, Congresswoman Sinema, for hosting this special hour to draw attention to Suicide Prevention Month, which we recognize here in September. Suicide within any population is a traumatic thing to deal with, but we are learning that it is increasingly important and increasingly a problem among our military and our veterans. It's critical that we work to address, to recognize, to prevent, to eliminate military suicides, and I hope that today's special order will help to shine a bright light on this very important topic. Suicide within the military is a national problem. You have heard my colleagues speak about it in their districts, in their state, and across the country, but it is especially acute in my home state of Nevada. A recent study done by the state of Nevada found that veterans in the Silver State commit suicide at a rate of more than 2.5 times higher than non-veterans and quadruple the national rate. The study further reported that Nevada's female veterans, those often hidden veterans, commit suicide at more than triple the overall rate for females statewide and nearly 6 times the national rate for females. The study also found that in 2010, suicide accounted for more than a quarter of the deaths among young veterans, those between 24 years and younger, throughout the state of Nevada. This is a trend we just cannot allow to continue. As other speakers have noted, every day 22 veterans take their own lives. Almost every hour, one of our nation's heroes takes his or her life. Nearly 1 in 5 suicides nationally is a veteran, even though veterans make up only about 10% of the U.S. population. As ranking member of the House Veterans Affairs Subcommittee on Disability Assistance, I'm working every day with my colleagues to ensure that veterans receive all the benefits that they've earned and the care that they need. So if you are a veteran who is struggling with thoughts of suicide, or you're the friend or family member of a veteran who needs help, please contact us, reach out to us, because we need to know what the VA can do to better support and serve you. I would also encourage my colleagues to co-sponsor H.R. 2527, which is the National Guard Military Sexual Trauma Parity Act. This would ensure that members of the Guard receive all the care they need if they're a victim of military sexual trauma while on training missions. We know that if you are a victim and you suffer such trauma, that can often lead to suicide. On our committee, we're constantly working to ensure that the VA is providing care for veterans struggling with the thought of suicide, but it's also important that we reach out and assure veterans that they know that receiving help is not a sign of weakness. Instead, it's a sign of strength. When Army Staff Sergeant Ty Carter received the Medal of Honor, he encouraged his fellow soldiers to reach out, and for the civilian community to support them. He said to the public, "Know that they are not damaged. They are simply burdened with living with what others do not. We are resilient and will emerge even stronger over time." Sergeant Carter, we know that because of leaders like you and supported by a grateful nation, we can win the battle against military suicide. So again, let us hear from you, and let me remind veterans and those who love them that the VA operates a confidential support center that's open 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And please call if you need support. Their phone number is 1-800-273-8255, and then just press number 1. You can also send a text message to 838-255. So don't hesitate to reach out. Someone will be there to hear you. Just as you never leave a fellow soldier on the battlefield, we can't leave anyone behind when they come home. When they come home with wounds that are both visible and hidden, we should be there. So thank you to my colleagues and to the Congresswoman from Arizona for giving us an opportunity to send this message loud and clear.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Titus. I now yield to my colleague from Pennsylvania, Congressman Matthew Cartwright.
And I thank the gentlewoman from Arizona for yielding. And I also want to join Congresswoman Dina Titus in thanking Congresswoman Sinema for arranging this special order hour and taking the leadership to put these people together to speak out on this topic. Congresswoman Sinema, I say to you that you bring honor and credit to the 9th District of Arizona in taking a leadership position in this role. I also, Mr. Speaker, want to point out that Congresswoman Sinema has brought the House together on these issues. She has brought Democrats and Republicans together in this special order hour, in case that fact has escaped your notice. We speak as one voice on behalf of American veterans, and I'm happy to lend my voice to that today. I come from Pennsylvania, which is home to nearly 1 million American veterans. These brave men and women served our country, and unfortunately, we are here to say we have not always served them. The United States Department of Housing and Urban Development estimates that nationwide, 62,619 veterans are homeless on any given night. And many of these veterans do suffer from mental illness. A recently released study from the Department of Veterans Affairs found that 22 veterans commit suicide every day. Now, I heard that several months ago, Mr. Speaker, and at first I shrugged it off. I mean, we're sort of callous around here. We're used to numbers. We're used to statistics being bandied about. So when somebody said, be shocked, it's 22 American veterans committing suicide every day, I thought, well, what's that? Out of 400 or 500 suicides nationwide every day? No, it wasn't that. It was somewhere between 80 and 110 American suicides every day. So we're not talking about a small proportion. We're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Speaker, we're talking about upwards of 20% of the suicides every day are American veterans committing suicide. And we heard earlier in this hour that it's something less than 10% of Americans are veterans. So it's hugely disproportionate. The number of people committing suicide in this country are hugely disproportionately veterans in this country, and that is a national embarrassment. As someone who cares deeply about veterans issues, I'm here to tell you I have introduced 2 bills after I heard that statistic. First, the Veterans Mental Health Accessibility Act, and second, the Expediting Hiring for VA-Trained Psychiatrists Act. Now, the Veterans Mental Health Accessibility Act aims to provide for our brave servicemen and women when they return from combat with both easily visible and difficult to detect wounds. While the physical wounds of war are evident immediately, mental health issues obviously may take longer to discover. As many as 30% of the Operation Iraqi and Enduring Freedom veterans face the possible diagnosis of a mental health disorder. However, after 5 post-service years, and this is the rule in the VA, after 5 years, veterans would go to the back of the line for psychiatric health care, with the average wait time for a veteran to receive benefits at 273 days. This could mean the difference between life and death. It's like a 5-year statute of limitations. After a service member is separated from the service, if he or she does not report a combat-related mental disorder within 5 years, it's as if they do not qualify for psychiatric care. The Veterans Mental Health Accessibility Act would ensure that no veteran be denied mental health treatment, no matter when combat-related mental health disorders first appear. It eliminates that ridiculous 5-year rule. Additionally, I've introduced the Expediting Hiring for VA-Trained Psychiatrists Act. This bill allows the Secretary of Veterans Affairs to fast-track the hiring of psychiatrists who have completed a residency at a VA facility. Mr. Speaker, I believe that we owe a great debt to those who serve our nation through military service, including those who stood ready at a moment's notice to fight for our freedom. As long as I am a member of this Congress, I will be working to increase knowledge of benefits available to the veterans community, to correct shortcomings in the VA system, and to ensure that the men and women of the armed forces who bravely serve this country receive all of the benefits to which they are so richly entitled. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and at this time I yield back to the gentleman from Arizona.
Thank you, Representative Cartwright. I now turn the time to my colleague from Illinois. Oh, sorry. No, not yet. Sorry. I now yield to my colleague from New York, Congressman Bill Owens. Thank you, Bill.
Without objection.
Thank you, Congresswoman Sinema. I appreciate the work you've done in bringing a bipartisan group together to address this issue. I think it's important that we understand a number of things. In my district, particularly upstate New York, there are 48 attempts at suicide every year. The hotline, which was addressed before, receives 137,000 calls on average annually, and that is statistics gathered from 2007 to 2012. That number, and I'll repeat this again for any veteran out there listening today, is 800-273-8255. How many of us have known someone who has committed suicide and have thought to ourselves, I didn't see it coming. How could I have helped? We hear that constantly when we talk to the families of those who have committed suicide. The New York Times reports that being a veteran increases your risk of suicide double. So you have 2 times a greater risk of committing suicide if you have served your country. I urge all of us to stay alert, to make sure that we are focused on watching those amongst us who may show signs of suicide, and it is incumbent upon Congress to provide the funding to defeat this terrible disease. In my district, a young man committed suicide who came from Glens Falls, who was assigned to the 10th Mountain Division in Watertown, New York. He was a skilled Black Hawk mechanic, and the theme that I mentioned before was repeated by his friends and coworkers. I didn't see it coming. How could I have helped? We say thank you to our veterans by oftentimes saying thank you for your service. But do we provide the service to them that they deserve? We do not nearly enough, and we should. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you so much, Congressman Owens. I now yield to Congresswoman Annie Kuster from New Hampshire.
Thank you, Congressman Sinema, and thank you so much for bringing us together today. This is a unique experience since I've been here in the United States Congress. Today we've heard from Republicans and Democrats, men and women, people from literally every corner of our country, young and old, who have served this country and who honor those who serve us. Each of us has been touched by this issue. And I want to say, from a personal perspective, having been raised by a combat veteran, my husband and I are both the children of combat veterans. My father was a World War II pilot, and he flew in 63 missions before he was shot down and served in a POW camp. My father-in-law landed on the beaches of Normandy when my father was flying overhead. And both my husband and I were raised in households that, although successful, had many dark secrets. These were households where we lived with PTSD. And I want to say to the veterans who have served our country of every era that we are here to serve you, and we will not leave you on the battlefield. I serve on the Veterans Affairs Committee, and it's a tremendous honor. And with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, led by Congressman Benachek, who you've heard from today, on the Health Subcommittee, we will stand by the veterans who have served our country. We will work to provide the resources and to help the men and women that are working across this country in our Veterans Administration to provide you with the services and the treatment and the support that you need. It's been a tremendous honor for me as I travel around the state of New Hampshire and my district to work with veterans groups, to sit in veteran centers, and to see the one-on-one support from the VSOs, from those who have worked in this field, from people who understand the dark secrets that you carry. We are here for you. We will work together, and under the leadership of Congresswoman Sinema and all of us who serve on the Veterans Affairs Committee and throughout this U.S. Congress, please know that we are here for you and we will not forget. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Congresswoman Kuster.
The chair will receive a message.
Mr. Speaker, a message from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker,
Madam Secretary.
I have been directed by the Senate to inform the House that the Senate concurs in the House amendment to the Senate Amendment to Enyart 527, cited as the Helium Stewardship Act of 2013.
The gentlewoman from Arizona, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I yield to my colleague from Illinois, Congressman William Enyart.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, always ready, always there. That's the motto of the National Guard. That motto is engraved on this commander's coin, my commander's coin, that I carry with me wherever I go. Before I came to Congress, I had the honor, the privilege, and the responsibility for 5 years to exercise command over the Illinois Army and Air National Guard. I commanded 10,000 soldiers and 3,000 airmen. It's my responsibility to train them, equip them, and order them into war. Most of them came back. 34 of them did not. 19 of them during my command. I carry those names with me in my breast pocket. Ranks, names, ages, hometowns. Units of assignment, date of death. What I don't carry are the 2 soldiers that I lost to suicide. I don't know why I don't have those names. I should have those names. They didn't come back either. Most of those soldiers that I ordered to go to war came home. Those few didn't. Many of them came home wounded. Some of those wounds not visible. The first time a soldier under my command committed suicide, my staff came to me and said, "General, are you going to go to the funeral?" I said, "Of course I'm going to the funeral." I said, "Well, your predecessor didn't go to funerals for soldiers who committed suicide." I said, "I do." We took them whole, sent them to war, and they came back broken. That's my responsibility. I go. Congressman Jim McDermott earlier spoke about responsibility. He talked about how we in Congress and we as a nation must take responsibility for these broken lives. I accept responsibility for what I've done. I accept responsibility for taking home men and women and sending them to war. I take responsibility for those 2 soldiers who committed suicide under my command, under my watch. It's not an easy thing to do, but that's what you have to do as a soldier because you're always ready and you're always there. Illinois was very lucky during my command. We went several years without a single suicide, while other states were losing soldiers and airmen. And we were very proud of that. We thought we were doing a great job. And of course, it was because we were doing such a great job and we drove it down to the lowest levels that it was okay to be stressed and it was okay to accept help and you should go get help. And those are all good things and they were the right things to do. But it wasn't all that we did. Because I know those figures were a lie. I know those 0 suicides were a lie. Because we had soldiers who were drunk at 2 in the morning riding motorcycles who died. We had soldiers driving cars at 120 miles an hour 2 months after coming home from a deployment. And that was a suicide. We must respond to that. And every soldier who comes home must take responsibility for another soldier so that we can save them. Thank you.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.